Hello everyone and welcome to a most interesting game from round 8 of the Isle of Man chess tournament. It's David Anton Guijarro versus Alexander Grischuk, and it's just a very interesting game that really shows you what kind of a person Grischuk is, and I mean that in a very good way. So without further ado, let's check out this very nice game. We also do have two fresh photos of the players that you see on the left here. Players' profile photos courtesy of John Saunders, one of the official photographers of the Isle of Man chess tournament. So it's always very exciting that when we get to see what the players look like at the moment of them playing the game. So without further ado, let's check out this very nice game. Guijarro with the white pieces opens with c4. So the English opening is on the board. We have e5 by Grischuk, g3 preparing to fianchetto the light square bishop, knight to f6 and bishop to g2. We have bishop to c5 by Grischuk and now knight to c3. And we have c6 preparing d5 by black. Knight to f3 preparing to castle and now e4 not allowing this idea. Forcing the knight to move, and this position hasn't been seen much in top tier tournaments. There are positions where knight g5 was played and where knight to g1 was played, but the move Guijarro plays is knight to h4, and it is already as of move 6 that we have a completely new game, at least regarding top tier tournaments. So Grischuk continues with d5, striking in the center, and here Guijarro trades once, c captures, and d3, again attacking black center now. And here knight to g4 by Grischuk. Yes, we do have a lot of horsing around here, but with good cause, as the f2 pawn is under attack. So of course Guijarro castles here, and now Grischuk has to make a decision. E3 is a very interesting idea. It seems like it prevents white from further developing, but after something like f captures and bishop captures with check, of course white will not recapture. You're gonna see king h1, and now after d4, it seems like black is really stifling white's development, but actually white has knight to f5 here, and here really it's just a completely crazy position where anything can happen. If you capture the knight on c3, then just knight captures on e3 is possible. Also queen to a4 check becomes possible, because after you capture the knight, queen a4 check can also pick up this knight. The g7 pawn is under attack, so everything is really crazy here. And although it seems like it gives a lot to black, it actually favors white. Even bishop captures on f5. I know a lot of you are considering this. Still, just the rook captures on f5, and white doesn't have a worry in the world. Still, you cannot capture here because of queen to a4 check. And now after you block knight to d7, you're still capturing. Queen captures on g4 now. Again, your g7 pawn is hanging, your bishop on e3 is hanging, and white will just be winning here now. So e3, a very interesting move. You could play it, but you have to be very careful. Grischuk chooses a very different line, g5. He says your knight has nowhere to go. So how do you save the knight? It's actually a really tricky idea. First, d4. You push away the bishop with bishop back to e7, and again, what do you do with the knight? First h3. Now you force the black knight to move, or you can trade, just captures. The problem is if you go knight to f6, then bishop just captures on g5. It's not a problem. And on the other hand, if knight to h6, then just queen b3. You completely ignore this threat, because if pawn captures, then you lose the knight on h6. Again, not a problem. White will be much better here. So after h3, Grischuk decides, okay, knight captures on f2. Why not? We have rook captures on f2, and now g captures on h4. And here we have queen to b3, just attacking the d5 pawn, and black will have some problems developing it. You can play something like bishop to e6, you lose the b7 pawn, and Grischuk already grabbed the pawn, so he decides first h captures on g3, he will grab another pawn, rook to f4, and now knight to c6. He gives back the d5 pawn. We have queen captures on d5, and now as the f7 pawn is under attack, Grischuk defends it with f5, and everything is perfectly fine here for black. But here white creates some problems for black. Well, not really, but it all depends on how black will react in this position. Here Guijarro played bishop captures on e4, and now Grischuk has to make a choice. Does he accept the challenge with f captures on e4? And I'm sure you all are expecting him to accept it, as it is the title of the video. Or does he just say, okay, I give back the pawn, we just continue the game. Queen captures, bishop captures, and so on. The material on the board is equal. We just continue playing a nice normal game. But Grischuk decided that f captures on e4 is the way to go, and he accepts the challenge. So what's the follow? We have queen to h5 check first. Of course, you force the black king to go for a nice walk. We have king to d7, and now again you don't want to do any unnecessary checking like queen to f5 check, because after king to c7 you will run out of useful moves. You don't have a check here. You don't. There are no ways to continue this in a good way. So here black would actually be better. So here Guijarro does what you have to do as white. Bring all of your pieces into the attack. Bishop to e3. Clear the c file for the rook. Once the knight moves, you want your rook to completely cut off the king from reaching the safety on the king's side. And okay, we have queen to g8 by Grischuk, now preparing queen to g6. He's up a piece, so he wants to trade queens, of course. With d5 by Guijarro, now attacking the knight here, and the knight back to d8. And knight captures on e4. You have to bring the knight deeper into the attack, and also you do want to clear the c file for the rook as soon as possible. And here Grischuk goes queen to g7, g6. And now offers a queen trade. Of course, once you've sacrificed a piece, you're on the attack, you are not interested in trading queens. So queen to e5, now not trading queens, centralizing the queen. Also the rook on h8 is under attack. So there is one move that comes to mind, knight to f7. It defends the rook on h8, also the queen on e5 is under attack, and the white needs to make a move. So you're on the attack, you don't want to go back and allow black to consolidate. Here, Guijarro just continues the attack. Rook captures on f7. Not only getting rid of the threat on the queen, but also now the rook is threatened. With queen captures on f7, and here the situation on the clock is Guijarro 21 minutes and Grischuk 1 minute and some 40 seconds. Of course, that doesn't surprise you, as Grischuk is always in time trouble. So what do you do here? Guijarro about to make a move. So a lot of interesting moves here. d6 is an interesting move. Rook to f1 attacking the queen is an interesting move. Could you capture the rook on h8? That is a good question. For example, if you capture the rook, yes, you've grabbed the rook, but there are maybe some other moves. Here, after queen captures on d5, perhaps black will get a chance to consolidate it. It's still hard to develop. White would still be, of course, much better here. But Guijarro finds a nicer move, extra points for aesthetics here. Rook to c1. Just a nice slow move, preparing rook to c7. Not only that, it also cuts off the black king from escaping. Here we have rook to f8 by Grischuk, saying, okay, if you try to do some rook lifting or something like that, I might have queen to f1 check, and if I get queen to f1 check, it's actually mate because the h2 pawn is covered by the pawn. So feel free to pause the video here and try to find the winning idea for Guijarro in this position while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent creator of miniatures in top tier tournaments. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, if you found queen to c7 with check, you will not be winning this game. After king to e8, there is no good way to continue this attack, you are just down material. For example, if d6, just bishop to f6, and black is perfectly fine. There are no moves that white could use to create some sort of an attack. d7 is covered, you cannot push d7, you cannot trade queens, your queen is under attack, and well, you still can't move the rook anywhere since it's just going to be very unpleasant. But for those of you who found rook to c7, that's a much better line, although it requires some calculation. For example, you have to go back, king to d8, and now you have to force yourself to play a slow move in a very crazy position, because now queen to f1 is the threat of mate, but now just a slow bishop to f4. You prevent queen to f1, and now whatever you play pretty much will be winning. And of course you have to notice that if queen captures on f4, then just queen captures on e7 is mate. But it requires a lot of calculations, because when a slow move is involved, you have to check everything that black can do, and it tends to be a bit unpleasant. So after rook to f8, there are a lot of nice ideas. d6, for example, is also a very nice idea, but it requires a lot of brute force calculation. For example, bishop captures on d6, queen captures with check, king e8, and now queen to e5 check. Queen blocks, and now knight to d6 with check, covering the f7 square. You're going to go king to d7, and now rook to c7 with check, getting the defender of the queen away from the queen. King captures, and now you're going to capture the queen with check, and of course the rest is self-explanatory. But Guijarro didn't play any of that, and for those of you who found Guijarro's move, you also get extra points for creativity and for aesthetics, because he played bishop to g5, and it was in this position that Alexander Grischuk resigned the game on move 24. Because there is nothing he can do here. So the rook is still on the back rank, so you cannot use the f1 square. The knight covers the f2 square, so there are no sneaky moves with the queen. What you can do is you could capture the bishop, but then you clear the the c7 square for the queen. For example, if bishop captures, just queen to c7 check, king to e8, and now it's not, of course, anything rash, but knight to d6 checkmate. You don't have a move, and of course the knight cannot be captured. And if you don't capture the bishop after bishop to g5, well, there simply are no good moves. You can try to make a move for yourselves, but there just isn't one. Either the rook or the queen can come to c7, so that's very unpleasant. If you try to prevent this, for example, with the bishop to d8 covering the c7 square, then it's even nicer. It's mate in one, knight to c5 checkmate. The pawn covers here, queen covers here, and also this e file. So just a beautiful miniature by Guijarro, and this is the kind of guy Grischuk is. He will not give back the pawn and play an equal game. He will rather accept the challenge, and he will present this beautiful game for us to enjoy. So it always takes two to create a beautiful game here. Both Guijarro and Grischuk created this masterpiece for all of us to enjoy. So yeah, there you have it. I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank Thomas Vivian, Dirk Martin Holtschmidt, and Andrew Frick for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the Isle of Man chess tournament, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and of course, whatever else happens in the chess world. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.